America's #1 national television program on Asia.
Hello, I'm Yue-Sai Kan. Welcome to Looking East. Tonight we bring you the sight and sounds of Peking, or as the official pronunciation goes, Beijing. It's not only the capital of China, but also a tourist hotspot. It will take you to all the famous points of interest, plus a place that is slightly off the normal tourist beat, an ordinary Beijing neighborhood. Whenever I compare Beijing with other world capitals, I always think of Rome, Paris, and Washington, D.C. Like Rome, Beijing's charming old architecture is always bathed in the mist of dust. And while Paris's layout on a map looks like spheres within spheres, Beijing's layout is boxes within boxes. Just like Washington, D.C., Beijing has the look and the perspective of a modern capital. Yet there is more about Beijing that amazes me. It is a city that lives in 2 dimensions of time. Although it has thousands of years of history, it is one of the fastest growing cities in the world. I can always see the past rubbing shoulders with the present, and both exist in an exciting harmony. The discovery of the skull of the famous Peking man at Zhoukou indicates that the Beijing area was inhabited as early as 500,000 years ago. The history of Beijing as a national capital only began in the 13th century when the Mongol Kublai Khan conquered China and built the city admired so much by Marco Polo. The 3rd emperor of the succeeding Chinese Ming dynasty tore down most of Kublai's city, summoned the best craftsmen from all over the country, sent officials to the south to gather the finest timber, tiles, and other materials, and spent 15 years in creating the new capital. Throughout the Qing dynasty, buildings had been repaired and rebuilt, and the famous Summer Palace was added to the empire's collection. Today, 40 years after the founding of the People's Republic of China, Beijing has become the cultural and administrative center of the country. The population of the city has grown to 9 million, and every inch of Beijing is under construction. Housing, factories, hotels, restaurants, and stores are springing up everywhere. And of course, tourism is quickly becoming a major industry.
I think both the Japanese and Americans are big spenders. They like to buy a lot of things in China, say the handicrafts, the antiques, silk, tea, and we have so many things to offer.
Despite rapid growth and modernization, it's impossible not to think about history in Beijing. Its magnificent architecture reminds you of all the splendor of the past dynasties. And of course, the center of this history is the Forbidden City. Also known as the Imperial Palace, the Forbidden City is China's most imposing architectural masterpiece. Its character is defined by simple lines, yet its richness in detail is among the most elegant anywhere. The 250 acres of the palace is arranged symmetrically, surrounded by a wide moat and protected by a high wall marked off by towers at each corner. The entire complex includes 6 main palaces, as well as many smaller buildings. Altogether, the palace contains over 9,000 rooms. The palace is decorated with figures of birds, turquoise, dragons, and huge bronze urns that were formerly plated with gold. The complex was a vast treasure house of precious art objects and rich architecture until it fell into disrepair after the fall of the Qing dynasty. From 1911 to 1949, the palace had gone through successive foreign invasions and occupations. Many of the surviving treasures have been revived and preserved and are now on display at the Palace Museum. The Forbidden City, once forbidden to all but the imperial court, is now a public garden. Another site that ordinary citizens of old China dared not come close to is the Temple of Heaven. Only the emperor, the son of heaven, journeyed here on the days before the solstices each year. It was in front of this altar of heaven where the emperor performed the 3 kneelings and 9 prostrations before the altars of his ancestors. As he was reconsecrated as ruler, he prayed for bountiful harvests and took upon himself the sins of his people. Heaven is round and earth is square. Designed with this Chinese philosophical belief in tandem with the most advanced principles of mechanics and geometry of the time, the Temple of Heaven stands as a masterpiece of 15th century architecture. Crafted entirely of wood and built without nails, the building soars 125 feet high. 12 pillars in a middle ring represent the month of the year. 12 others, set in the outer wall, stand for the hours of the Chinese day. Another tourist hot spot is the Summer Palace, where the waters and gardens were patterned after the scenery in the south. Here you can spend hours upon hours exploring the bridges and pavilions along the waters of Lake Kunming, or stroll along the Long Gallery to admire the exquisite paintings, or climb up Longevity Hill for a panoramic view from atop. On the edge of Lake Kunming sits an extravagant marble boat, the boat of purity and ease, a monument of the Empress Dowager's excesses. It was financed with funds originally intended for the Imperial Navy. The palace was looted twice by the Allied Western forces occupying Beijing in 1860 and again in 1900. Today, this one-time haven of the Imperials is the favorite resort for the people of Beijing and tourists. Beijing is ancient and Beijing is modern. Capital Airport is the largest airport in China with modern amenities. The official Chinese airline, CAAC, has international flights to over 20 countries and more than 200 domestic routes.
We have more than 100 big aircraft. The major problem is enough aircraft, enough technical personnel. We have set the target of establishing about 6 regional airlines, domestic. Competition is good if it's to a reasonable extent.
Hotels are also flourishing in response to the demands of an ever-increasing tourist industry. Local construction and foreign investment has resulted in a doubling of the number of city's hotel rooms. It's only been 5 years since the first international standard hotel was opened in Beijing, but today, world-class hotels can be found all over. Taking the bus or the subway can be a more exciting way to tour the city. The public transportation costs next to nothing. You can go anywhere for less than a dime. Beijing has a modern and efficient subway system, and it is certainly cleaner than the New York subway. Its first section was completed in 1969 and the second section opened in 1982. The newer section tunnels 10 miles around 3 sides of the inner city, tracing the ancient path of Beijing's city walls, which are now destroyed. Perhaps there is no better way to explore the city at your own pace than by bicycle. A letter of introduction from China International Travel Service or your embassy is all that is required to rent a bike. Then you can take yourself to parts of the city that is slightly off the well-beaten tourist track. Hutongs are small alleys dating back at least to the last century. In old Beijing, nearly 2,800 hutongs still exist, untouched by modern construction. Inside these alleys, the walls on either side are unbroken except for doorways. There are no windows looking out onto the streets because the houses are all turned inwards, with rooms built around a courtyard. In Chinese, we call this old style 四合院. This architectural design is unique, for it is typically found only in Beijing. It stems from the traditional Chinese lifestyle, where the family consists of parents, children, and grandchildren all living under one roof. Originally, a 四合院 was an exclusive residence for a single wealthy family. Today, it's shared by several. Now let's meet some of the people who live in this courtyard. Food is the soul of the Chinese family. Cooking is everybody's business. Evenings like this are for the family to share and enjoy. There's no secret within family members. One person's problem is everyone's business, while any resources is shared by the whole family.
我们国家这几年这个经济发展呢，速度是快的，经济发展速度快。
The economy of our country is developing quickly. Our party is stressing improving the national economy. Especially in the rural area, we have 800 million peasants. Their life is getting better.
确实见成效了。
我叫丛玉文，我在北京绒毯厂工作。
My name is Chong Yuwen,
是做技术工作。
and I'm an engineer in the Beijing
工作
blanket
时间还
plant.
比较长了。我们家庭呢，现在是
We have
4
4
口
people in the family. My
4口
husband,
人嘛，就是
a boy,
我们夫妻
and
2
a
个，加
girl.
上2个一个儿子一个女儿。
This is my
这
boy.
个是儿子。我们大概
We have a
总
total
收入
income
呢
of 300 yuan per month.
每月房租是比较简单的，就是大概就是3块多。
Each month, we pay 3 yuan for
这样
rent.
房水电加起来呢，大约
Water
1个月下来
and
呢就是10多
electricity
块钱。
costs about 10
然后再
yuan.
有计划的每个月存上几十块钱，这样留起来呢，就是做我们
Every month, we save some money,
买一些个
so later we
大
can
件
buy
比如
big
说现在
items
叫
like
大家
color
生活都提
TV
高了，比如
and
买电视机
refrigerator,
电冰箱
things like that.
这个。
Housing is a big problem in Beijing. Even though many young people would like to move out from their parents' home, a lack of adequate housing has left them no choice but to stay at home. Sometimes, getting one unit in a high-rise like this becomes a prerequisite to marriage. Beijing is growing fast, and so is the tourist industry. New measures must be introduced to come up with new answers.